Alors Massimo est parti.
So Massimo left us because he had to leave at 6. He had a plane to catch, he told me. He did tell me. So we'll have Jan. I apologize. So I will say a few words, and then Jan, I suggest that you make comments to that. So I will be brief on the conclusions because I will send them to you, but I'm very happy about this conference because you've been here from the beginning to the end, more of you than last year, and we had 200 registrations. I don't know how many followed on Zoom. And there was a lot in the chat box. I've seen the list of the text in the chat box, but of course we could not respond to them. And we did this conference in a new situation, unprecedented situation, full of risk. We should not undermine them, as Philippe said this morning, but many opportunities also, and we should not underestimate them either. So we need to seize the opportunity of the time. So we have a macroeconomic global crisis for sure, of a large scale, and we should not underestimate it, and we should not wait for it to go away by itself. I insist on that, and this was reminded to us by Franck. You know, when crises go away by themselves, they can leave a lot of damage if we don't have the right solutions for that. And we have some historical responsibility also. First, to understand this crisis, because the crisis is not just exogenous, and I would like to insist on so a lot on this. It is in ourselves. It is with us. We bear a share of this, of the responsibility of this crisis. Yeah, well, not again, not the Commission, us, the states, Europe, and the member states. The member states and their societies. I would like to add the societies because, you know, we belong to civil society, but there's not just nice people in civil society. There are nuisances. You know, the Greens, they're not great. And they've been pulling the states backwards. And the states let them do because they were not on the offensive, the states. They were defensive under the pressure. Yes, there were accidents we will never forget. With Fukushima, that has stricken people and struck people, and it's not Fukushima. The problem is not Fukushima. Nuclear is not the issue, but there was some risk, and we realized that the Japanese companies, you know, there were some problems, and they had to test again, and we did well. We did the stress test. That was quick to be done, but. So as a first solution, I suggest that we should assess our policies and the choices we made. Jan, if you can make a proposal to create an assessment agency, I will always be grateful for the rest of my life. And as for energy, I repeated to Nicolas, Massimo, Jan, everyone, the electricity market has been poorly built up. It's awkward. It's not. There's not enough solidarity in it, and we have a massive external dependency to gas, and that added up to the problems, to the proposals of the European Commission. And you said, because you did say that, you said, but the proposals we made, the objectives have been defined from the national plans of the states. Well, no, because 80% of ENR as an objective, of renewables as an objective, this is not something imposed. That's the German choice that was imposed to all. Belgium is not asking for 80%. France is not asking for that either. We went to 40% painfully, and the maximum, that's the max we can do. Poland is not asking for 80% of renewables. They don't have water, wind, or sun. They have nothing. Poor of them. They have the poles. That's a good start. But and same thing for the Czech Republic with Susanna. You know, the Czech Republic didn't ask for 80% renewables in their energy mix. So, you know, to reach 80%, Some are asking for less and some are asking for more. So does that mean that some want to reach 100%? No. So this is not true. And yet they were subsidized a lot. And even if the states, let's consider that the states did propose that, Jan, don't you think the role of the Commission should have been to warn them about the negative impact of their choices? Because if the Commission doesn't help the states to make the right decisions, what's the point? So what's the point of the Commission? What's its role? So they have to explain the perverse effects. Germans spent 500 billion. They restructured RW Vattenfall. They did some energy precariousness, and they polluted more than the others, and they produced more greenhouse gases. So when it didn't work, they called on to the nuclear. They don't want it in their backyard, but they want to buy from it. But when there was not enough nuclear energy, they asked for gas and more gas, and they wanted to impose it to us with Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2. And since it's not available because the Russians closed the tap or blew it up, then we have to buy liquid gas. That's not right. This is not the right policy. I would like to insist on that. So what do we do? Emergency measures and reforms have to be structured. There isn't what Christophe said, because we are dealing with an emergency. No, the emergency is to reform the market. So we need to put up this measure to save poor people and companies in that reform. This is what we have to do. This is very difficult, I admit it. But this is what we have to do. And we need to unite our societies around this reform in a world that is being broken up or that is being built back in blocks. So under the American lead, Europe will not dominate the U.S. Will be dominated by the Americans again. No, I love the U.S. I love Americans, but I don't want Biden to be dominating me. That's not the right government. It's a dangerous one now. So amongst these solutions, we saw the nuclear. So this morning you should have listened to Bossy. Nuclear, this unknown hero. Wonderful. I wanted to kiss him on the cheeks, but honestly. And yet, he did not underestimate the risk and the benefits, but he told us we have to educate, we have to take ownership and so on. But in order to do this, we have to adopt the nuclear choice, and this is where we have an issue. And I'm sure you agree with me, and that's what's sad. We agree, and the Czechs, when I see how offensive they are, and you come from that country, we need to convince them and convince the Commission that we can do a society choice, the whole of the EU together. So a few proposals to conclude, but I will not bother you with that. We will detail them later on. We said assessment agency or evaluation agency, then a solidarity pact. And I will come back to this because with Christophe Grudler, there was some misunderstanding. So he agrees to support this proposal and to push it to the Parliament. But that's not just enhance cooperation. It's more than that. That is, we have to show solidarity with the countries that do not have the same assets or history or wealth and so on. It's a lot more complicated. Number 3, reform the market with a new regulation, and no one responded to the SIEC. Should we make nuclear a European general interest service? Number 4, financing. Well, there are many models underway, but the Commission did an analysis. Thank you, Nicolas. He left. But it's not just because the projects are poorly organized that it takes so much time. Technocracy in the different states and at the EU, it takes a lot of time. And he told me because you have to fill in a long file before you even get an appointment. Number 5, is nuclear a common asset? Does it satisfy the public interest? If yes, then we have to redefine the Euratom mission. And that's Euratom's reform is now voting at qualified majority or consulting the European Parliament. That will make us waste any more time. No, if you make a society choice, you have to redefine Euratom. That's what was done in 1958. Because the mission in 1958 was prosperity and industrialization of Europe. That was the nuclear mission. So promoting the nuclear to do that. Now, Euratom's mission is safety, nuclear safety, always more safety. You know, at some point, safety equals safety, and too much control. That's their mission under the pressure of the Austrians, the Germans, and Luxembourg. They don't want it, so it's not good. Number 6, youth. I won't repeat it, so I invite someone to take on this topic and organize the Entretien Européen on educational issue and transfer of skills. And then we need to plan our investments and at the same time decentralize them. We need to do both. You need to work with the territories, the regions, but in the framework of planning, maybe European planning in agreement with the willing states, and then local agencies in synergy with a European agency that could assess or evaluate, program, and in the future implement with societies and find the right players. And societies, it's not just what Emmanuel Macron said last time. He would say that should be like the National Resistance Council. So he has a council built up with people who don't know anything about it because they choose citizens, they handpick them at random. So to do the France public energy policy, you're going to pick people at random? No, you have to give the assets. You have to let society have the right experts and society experts, and not just the government experts who come from administration school and they don't know about energy. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but you're worse than me because you said that one day that our minister couldn't read and write. I'm not saying this. I say they don't know the industry, which is true very often. So this is what we propose. So we're going to draft all these recommendations, Jan, and I will ask my last question. We will submit them to the Czech presidency because you have understood that we have a weak point for them, a soft spot for them, and the European Nuclear Forum is meeting in November. So I'm asking you whether this will be on the agenda of this ENF conference, and I can facilitate a roundtable on this if you want to. You have the floor.
These are very essential discussions, and many thanks to you, Claude, personally, but also to the whole team of and the whole concept of Entretien Européen for 2 decades running such discussions. I think, given that this is the last year, it's important to recognize the legacy that this event leaves and the importance that it has played in public debate. It's clear that throughout the 20 years, we've been in different situations with respect to the situation in Europe and also with respect to the situation of nuclear energy. And it's probably also clear that of the 20 years, this may be the most difficult one, or certainly the most critical one. And therefore, I think you are right to sound an alarm bell, to call for profound debate, to call for accelerated discussion, but also to call for open, honest questioning of the established framework. That's clear. We are in an unprecedented crisis, and we cannot just pretend that we will do business as usual. I think it's also clear that we are facing a crisis that we will not be able to surmount or come out with unharmed if we do not stick together, if there is no solidarity, if there is no sense of common purpose and willingness for common action. I think the discussions like this one can certainly help in this regard, and you know, nuclear being a very sensitive debate that has always excited emotions. We do need to make sure that in times of crisis, we don't make some sort of shortcut or short-handed solutions or decisions on something as important as a decarbonized or low-carbon energy source, which can be part of the transition to the future decarbonized mix. So in that regard, I think a number of the discussions here, a number of the solutions proposed, or a number of the proposals are quite welcome. We certainly, for example, agree on the importance of retaining the expertise, and that means also making sure that we have a continuous sort of intergenerational continuity, so that young generation sees the purpose of choosing professional career in nuclear as something that makes sense if they are interested in it, because we will need in the future as skilled engineers and as competent technicians as we have had in the past 50 years. Otherwise we cannot run no matter what share of nuclear in the energy mix.
Absolument.
I think you are also right that the time has come to ask ourselves very honest and uneasy questions about the current market model, about the way it currently provides pricing signals. I think Erkki made point about price signals, and I think the pricing mechanism of the current market model is closely linked to it. The Commission has said clearly, the President has said that this is something we need to revisit. And from the perspective of nuclear, this is clearly an important topic or an important opportunity to see whether the current market setup gives the right long-term signals for future developments in the market. Nuclear does need a perspective that is long-term, that recognizes the very high level of upfront investment and the length of that investment. So clearly, it's clear that it's understandable that you call for such a discussion, and it, I think, is aligned with what the Commission is saying is needed. And I think it's recognized also by Member States. I hear clearly the Council being receptive and asking actually the Commission to look at the current market model. Also from the perspective whether the investment environment that this market model is linked to is fair for all technologies, whether it makes sure that all low carbon technologies can contribute to decarbonization, and whether at the same time it creates the right incentives for ensuring capacity adequacy, considering that the concept of adequacy is profoundly changed in a system that relies on high level of renewables. So I think all that is understood. I noted your disappointment that no one picked up the topic of services of general economic interest. I think we discussed it exactly 1 year ago here as well. I know it's your cause célèbre. I said things on this last year. What I want to say today is that we don't know whether SGEI is the response to our questions about the market model. I think we need to see. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I certainly would, envy anyone who would have the crystal ball now to say, SGEI is the way to solve the market. I don't know. Let's see.
We try in one state maybe.
Ask the question about the fit for purpose or fitness for purpose of the Euratom Treaty, whether it provides the right legal framework, the sufficient legal framework. But at the same time, I think we need to respect the political reality. We have a situation where in Europe there is no consensus on the merits or demerits of nuclear. And I think you mentioned NF. We have tried to make sure that this year's NF is interactive as much as possible. We have listened to the criticism that came in the past from the civic society, saying that this has been too much of a sort of one-way communication just from the podium to the audience, that there is importance to have an interactive debate. So we tried to change it and make it more interactive. precisely because I think we have to be aware that there is no single point of view on nuclear in Europe, and we cannot continue running events where we will try to either just take one side of the story or bring the two camps together and assume that one will convince the other. This will not happen. I think we need to start from a pragmatic point of view, saying that we have a divided situation. And I would advise that also, I think, in these conclusions, this needs to be reflected. There are certain things which may be nice for some to have. Maybe everybody in this room would agree with them, but it's not the reality in Europe at large. There will not be a single view of that type. I think you are also right to raise the issue of regulatory obstacles that may stand in the way, not only investment obstacles or financing obstacles, but also regulatory obstacles. The perennial topic of harmonization of technologies and technological standards and how that actually makes all kinds of licensing longer. Also the question of spatial permitting and planning. So I think all those are relevant topics and issues to raise. You are also, I think, fully right to call for a democratic debate on all these topics. But here I come to more critical part of my conclusions. Democratic debate requires mutual respect, some sort of open mind and no preconceptions. And I think some of the conclusions and some of the suggested takeaways from today, in my view, do not conform to this principle. Because we cannot have a debate which sort of tries to scapegoat certain member states or pretend that there are member states that impose on others some choices. This is not what Europe is about. I don't think there is any evidence for that, and I think in an event that we were proud to, in the past, to support, I see no place for it, and I need to object to it. We are in the Commission, as I said, not taking sides in the debate on nuclear. We don't go and promote nuclear. We don't go and discourage nuclear. We are making sure that actually those who choose to use nuclear do it in a way that ensures that all European citizens and businesses actually either directly benefit from it or at least do not disbenefit from it. I think that's the same approach that colleagues in DG Comp have when it comes to state aid, when it comes to potential interventions in the market that would be detrimental to the general public interest, and it's the same thing that we do in DGNR. And from that perspective, I must say that there were two things that struck me not positively in today's discussions. One of them is that I think a large part of the interventions, to me, seem to be fighting the wrong enemy. Time and time again today, there was some sort of a suggestion that renewables and nuclear are in opposition to each other. And I want to strongly refute that. As the Commission has said, decarbonization efforts, if they are going to succeed and if they are going to achieve the 2050 objective, they will need a mix of both. This is reflected in the 80-20 or 80-15, the 80 renewables, 15 nuclear, I insist, is nothing that is a goal or target or an imposition. This is the result of a combined analysis of what member states intend to do individually in order to satisfy the collectively adopted objective of zero carbon mix by 2050. Some of them want to do it with nuclear, some of them want to do it without. When you add all the numbers together, you end up with 80% renewables and 15% of nuclear. There's no such target. This is the result of member states' decisions within their prerogatives under the treaties to confront the collectively agreed objective of decarbonization. I think to try to derive from it some sort of a competition or opposition or antagonism between renewables and nuclear is wrong. And I can just give you one figure that was not mentioned. We heard plenty of figures today, and they are all very useful. It's important to talk numbers. There's one figure that I heard somewhere else than here, and therefore I want to add it to the debate. 3,000 terawatt hours of heat, or 3,000 terawatt hours of electricity currently needed for heat purposes in Europe. To get to 2050 zero carbon, we need to decarbonize them all. 3,000 terawatt hours, that's 30 Belgiums. You heard today from the Belgian NGO that they are called 100 terawatt hours because Belgium uses 100 terawatt hours a year. So 3,000 is 30 Belgiums. There is space enough in those 3,000 for every single nuclear anyone can ever build and every single renewable of any sort that anyone can ever build. And there is also hydrogen. So let's not drive on top of that. So let's not drive unnecessary divides between sources that should actually be working together in order to get us to decarbonization. My second bemol in the debate today is that I felt that a lot of the discussions here were somehow inspired by nostalgia for the 1970s and 1980s. And I can relate to it at personal level because I grew up in those years. Those were the days of my childhood and adolescence, and it was fantastic. My parents loved me and supported me. My grandparents spoiled me. But now we are in 2022. I have my own children to whom I need to actually play the role that parents play to me. I have still my parents to whom actually I have to provide at least as much care as they provided to me when I was a kid. So the life has changed. There's no place for nostalgia. I think nostalgie is a good name for a radio station, but it's not a good name for policy basis or for policy discourse. So I think we need to have a debate about nuclear for the 21st century, not about how it was in the past and how it could be now. And then, so for me, these are two things that I think did not resonate with me. And then there are elements here and there on the reinforced cooperation, for example, which I think go beyond what is in the treaties. In the Euratom Treaty, there is no enlarged cooperation, cooperación structurada approfondida. So I think we need to be respectful also of the confines that we have, both legally and politically. And I'll stop there, because I'm sure you have been provoked by so many things that I said that you will now go and react.
Absolument.
Absolutely. You know me inside out. Well, allow me a couple of words, if you don't mind. I'll start with the end. Nostalgia? No, far from it. And I'm very often blamed for not being nostalgic. I'm not a woman from the past. I'm a woman from the future. I'm really being blamed for being way too much on the avant-garde. So maybe in 20 years' time, people will realize that this is something that we already described. No, I'm not feeling nostalgic. You've got children? Do you have grandchildren? Well, I have children, I have grandchildren, and I've got grandchildren. And I've got a total of 16 of them. They are living on every continent. So I wanted to build the future with nuclear. Why? This is not the only thing I do in life. Well, simply because nuclear power is an amazing, energy. You can use it for the best, but also for the worst. I'm not forgetting the bomb. millions of lives have been saved thanks to nuclear energy, thanks to nuclear medicine and the isotopes. When in the future we want to escape planet Earth because of the fires everywhere, we're going to go into the outer space with the nuclear technologies. We won't go into outer space with wind or solar energy. I'm not nostalgic, far from it. But I'm sorry, you were talking about the democratic debate, but we had the democratic debate today. You know, the democratic debate is not only limited to pros and cons. You know, this is what we've experienced for the past 30 years. And this has been holding us back because we want to respect those who are in favor, but, we also wanted to respect the followers of the other camp. But it's important to work with companies, with territories, with trainers, with the young, with the elderly, with the experts, with the economists. This is what democracy is all about. That's how we can come up with a project. I did this democratic debate, and at some point, really, I got bored, Jan, believe me, simply because we didn't make headway whatsoever. And I remember, Massimo was surprised that we had all of the people from Bure, they were in the room, and they say, and Massimo told me, you invited people from Bure. Well, I know them inside out. They from Bar-le-Duc. I am a native from Bar-le-Duc. These are people I know very well. They are against waste. They are against the nuclear power. They don't want to manage waste because they are against the nuclear power. But my dear friend, whether you're in favor or not of nuclear power, you need to do waste management. When you press the button, you've got the light is on. You certainly wouldn't want to go back to lighting candles. So I don't have preconceived ideas. I have convictions. There's a difference between having preconceived ideas and convictions, and these convictions come from the past 30-year experience. This is a 20th edition, but this is the 100th conference, at least, with you, with other people, and not only with French attendees. I went to Budapest, to Warsaw, to Helsinki. I went everywhere I was invited. Even in Africa, I've been invited to Kenya to talk about nuclear power. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go there because I've got another conference on Colombia that I need to attend. So this relies on convictions, not on preconceived ideas. You heard Philippe, you heard the other friends talk about the work that was done regarding economics. I'm not an economist myself. I'm not an engineer. I take a particular interest in nuclear engineering because this is part of the topic that we address, but I'm a member of the civil society and I take an interest in a great many things. And we've had very interesting debates. And we have, committed. We have some of us are elected representatives. He supported, he was the advisor. He was an advisor to the European Commission, to the DG Internal Market. He's a close friend with Didier Guersin. He will have breakfast with him tomorrow, not to convince him, but to agree on how we can move together in the same direction. Jan, your allies, if you want to make sure that you have a successful market reform, your allies, this is us. No, we are your allies. Sometimes they are enemies of you in the European Commission. It's not that we've got something against Germany. There was a reconciliation with Germany. My name is FISCHER, and we love the Eastern European countries. My spouse's name is HERZOG. He originally comes from Croatia. We've got every right to say that you should be careful because you are heading for the wall. Because once you've hit the wall, it's too late. The risk is high that you become disabled or that you become dead. I like it. I like it. I like you provoking me, and I like me provoking you. But democracy means to organize all together the public policies that need to be developed. This is what a democratic debate is all about. If you have ideas, even though we do not see eye to eye, I will continue inviting you. Democracy requires a lot of efforts. You need to secure a good understanding of what the challenges are, and it requires a proper knowledge of law, and it needs a proper knowledge of the EU institutions. And then we must make sure that we remain independent. It's not because I disagree with European Commission that I'm against the European Commission. I've got every right of being against the European Commission. You should be happy to hear that Claude disagrees with me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest that we leave it at that. I hope to see you soon. Anyway, thank you very much to you. Thank you very much to Massimo. Thank you very much to the support of the European Commission, because this colloquium was only possible thanks to the support we've been given by the European Commission. I must say that without the European Commission, we wouldn't have organized this conference so brilliantly in Brussels. So thank you very much, Jan. And so we will now be working on the proceedings of this conference, and will disseminate these proceedings as widely as possible. And the debate shall continue with or without me. Thank you very much. I wish you a wonderful evening, and I hope to see you soon.